So this is one of those, let's say, cartridges I have a lot of cool, let's say, memories, but also a very nice story to tell you with. So when I was in Spain on vacation, I can still remember having all kinds of different games when it comes to the Game Boy. The Turtles, Super Mario, Tetris, a lot of familiar games a lot of people maybe also owned. But my parents came back from some weird, shady shop, coming back with this cartridge. Looking at it as a child, I was just flabbergasted, having multiple games on one single cartridge. However, this was maybe still one of my best cartridges I've ever owned. I think throughout my collection and playing of Game Boy, I had like 4 of them, but this was the smallest collection, but also the best one. The cartridge has been used a lot and you can just actually see it from all the wear and tear, particularly when it comes to the sticker. The sticker is kind of funny because they didn't even make the effort to put it and align it on a certain location, and that's resulting in having a lot of chipped up parts of the multi-game card. But however, the quality of the card is not similar to original Game Boy. Yeah, the first thing I've noticed throughout say 10 plus years, that my original screw basically removed from the cartridge itself. And in here it will unveil the cartridge and actually how the PCB looks and how they configure it. Over here we're having a chip itself from Korea with 2 black blobs that has all of the information. But okay, so I still need to put a screw in this cartridge, so it will not open up that easily. Let's do a quick overview of the games and what kind of games that I've played. So first of all, we're going to be starting with the old school legendary combination. So yep, I had the original Game Boy Classic. That was the time era where we had this particular, let's say, cartridge. So let's boot it up and let's have some fun, because this is going to be a trip to nostalgia. So let's remove the Tetris game and let's put in the cartridge. The first thing I've noticed that you can fit it in perfectly. The overall quality, where this had no Nintendo logo or whatsoever, the quality was perfect. It fits in like a glove. But let's do a quick overview of, let's say, the game list itself. But where this thing is just pure nostalgia, you know, where we're living in an amazing time where we have different options when it comes to Game Boys. Before we're going to be looking into the multi-game card itself, the first thing I'm going to be doing is looking at what kind of Game Boys we're having. So over here we're having the backlight model. So that is one of those still favorite ways to play. So the shell itself has been completely refurbished, so this is not an original shell, and you can sometimes even film with pressing the D-pad. I think that is one of the biggest noticeable difference. So let's move one of my favorite games to play. That's the Revenge of the Gator. Absolutely a very cool pinball game. And let's slide in the game and let's take a close look. Let's say the game list itself. Yeah, this is absolutely awesome, because this is just more like an authentic way to play, still having the original screen, but the backlit, I wish we had it back in the day. That would make playing the Game Boy so much more convenient. But let's take a close look at the first page. So in here you're finding already one of the familiar games, like Turtles, Super Mario, and we have all kinds of cool games. Crocodile was one of the games and we're going to be booting up later on. It's absolutely one of the favorite ones I really love to play today. It's also a very expensive game if you want to buy it separately. Over here we have Dr. Mario, and you can already see a lot of familiar games. Mario Egg is on here, even Battle City. So the first page on the cartridge is absolutely legendary. So the 13th is going to be Tetris, Volley Fire, Boxing, Tromboy, and even Klexos on here. And you can just see how many good titles are on only the first 2 pages. Loops, Alleyway, Odd Hello is also a fun game to play. Snake Wars, Motocross, Penguin Land. You know, there are so many cool games, and of course Tetris. What is convenient about Tetris, if you have 2 multi-game cards, you have a lot of different games you can just link up and play together with friends. And of course, when it comes to multi-game cards, we cannot forget the instant cheating. Having over here the Turtles with complete 30 or almost like infinite lives, and the same goes for Mario Land. So I think it's better. I think that was one of those extra cool features that you don't need to have any cheat cartridges. You can just plug and play. But let's boot up the Crocodile game, because that's one of those games that I just loved a lot. This is the different region. This is not the original PAL version. So what you need to do is going through every single area, 4 stages, doesn't matter which one you choose, and the last one will be a boss fight. What's kind of cheesy about the game itself, if you're going to be playing through this, the downside is that you always need to open every single chest. It's not like a random chest having key for the next pair or the next stage. Nope. It's always the last freaking chest. But the soundtrack of the game is absolutely awesome. All the soundtracks are awesome. And if you're having enough bonuses or hearts, you're going to have like superpower and all the kind of cool things. So you can like have a super whip. There we go, we have the first power up. Of course the character cannot jump enough, so we need to do a lot of messing around with this. Oh boy, this is going to be difficult. Oh, this is such a cheesy game. However, if you want to restart at the start or restart the game itself, you need to power it on and off every single time. I still remember there were like the ones with a tiny, let's say, button on the back, but those were like not perfect because we didn't have a menu at all. You need to switch between the games. But this is one of the cool ways to play, and there were so many legendary games. Battle City, oh man, so many cool games. And this is one of the reasons I always took this particular cartridge with me. But another thing I wanted to chit chat about is of course all of the different ways we can play. Because one of the cool features of this multi-game card is, and maybe this sounds kind of silly to say, is that when I have different multi-game cards, we couldn't use them on every Game Boy. So having a Game Boy Color or Advance, we did have a lot of problems. So, but let's do another cool way to play. Let's take a close look at my custom Kirby Game Boy. So this is absolutely another cool device. So this comes with an IPS panel. Yeah, and playing these old games, again, on this beautiful IPS panel is absolutely cool. And yeah, one of the cool things is if you're having two Game Boys, we can just link it up. So having the one in the multi-game card, but also the one over here. So it was a super convenient thing I have been using back in the day a lot. Yeah, that is one of those games, one of the best choices they have ever made when basically releasing the Game Boy back in the day. So everybody wanted to have a freaking Game Boy. Even my parents were completely like obsessed with it to play Tetris, like all of the people in the world, or most of them. But experiencing the game on an IPS panel, it's not the authentic way. Personally, I do love myself the backlight screen, and of course we have so many different ways now to play, because there are no more and more crazy ways to play when it comes to the Game Boy Classic itself. So yeah, the Game Boy with the multi-game card is absolutely a blast to the past. And again, I'm still just using it today because it's still having a lot of favorite games. But like I mentioned before, it's like what I loved about this cartridge, not only that it comes with good games. So when I had a Game Boy Color back in the day, yeah, I upgraded, and a lot of multi-game cards didn't work somehow. But this particular 55-in-1, yep, it still worked. Fit like a glove, and we can boot it up without any problem. And I think what's so cool, I love the Game Boy Color. I've been playing it to death back in the day with a lot of cool games like Super Mario DX. Of course, we only had these particular ones. I can still also remember they had these, I say, Game Boy Color games and or multi-game cartridges where they were most of the time just bad, like containing non-color games most of the time. So having all kinds of different games with me was so much fun. You see what I'm doing over here? I'm starting up the same game again. That's the thing that I'm always doing. So this multi-game card is absolutely blast to the past with a lot of good games on them. But you can be surprised how expensive they will become in the future sometimes. I even found one with a very cool rumble function and Pokeball pinball. But they were asking quite a lot of money for it, to the point I'm thinking this makes no sense. For me, making reviews is just fun. And for me it can be an option to buy an expensive multi-game card to showcase on the channel. However, if you just want to use it, you have all kinds of cheap solutions. One of the many ways are, for example, the EverDrive GB. The EverDrive GB is one of those plug-and-play devices you can just pick up, and you can buy it for not even a lot of money. We do have different kind of brands and different kind of solutions. This thing comes even with the built-in battery, so if you need to have extra features. So that's absolutely nuts if you think about it. You can just boot it up, and in here, there we go. Adding your games so much easier. I wish we had this back in the day. How cool would it be? You can just choose your game, have every single game to your disposal, and you can just play it. Load, start. The only thing sometimes is that maybe the loading times can be slightly longer than normal, where the multi-game card has an instant load. Here you can see it just gives me a black screen. But yeah. You know, it's kind of funny that stuff like this happens in the video. Hello? You. But normally it will take up a couple of seconds and will load up your games. So this is actually a Game Boy Classic game, so that's kind of cool. So you can just see we're having Adventure Island has been like installed and ready to go. So what you can actually do is remove this. Let's grab ourselves the backlit Game Boy, slap in this cartridge, powering on the device. It will boot up like in every single multi-game or like say cartridge. Pressing start because it's already loaded up. It will give it another reboot. And there we have a very easy way to play. And let's be honest, how cool would it be if we had a cartridge like this back in the day? But in the end, I just wanted to showcase this old school multi-game card and share some, let's say passion of mine and the time I've enjoyed myself so much with this 55-in-1, where this thing is completely obsolete and makes no sense because we have so many different ways to play. I also wanted to showcase in this video when it comes to different Game Boys and also different cartridges. It would be great if you subscribe, hit the little bell, and I will see you in the next video.